Greetings and welcome to the channel. This is Mikhailov from Team Retro, where we like retro games and the devices that bring them to us. The Anbernic RG40XX line continues to multiply, starting with the 35XX and then evolving into handhelds such as the 28XX and the 35XXH. Now, the RG40XXH has made its debut, adding another option in the XX line. In this video, we're going to put the RG40XXH through its paces, and we're going to find out if this handheld is worth your hard-earned dollar bucks. So let's dive in and get to work. At time of recording, the Anbernic RG40XXH is available from Anbernic's main storefront, retailing at about $69.99. The unit I am showing is a gray model sent to me by Anbernic for the purposes of this review. As is always required, all opinions are my own, I'm not being paid, and they are not seeing this video before it is published. It's time to hop onto our mount and ride into Spec Town. The RG40XXH is powered by an H700 quad-core ARM Cortex-A53 processor. The GPU is a dual-core G31 MP2 chip. The device has 1 GB of LPDDR4 RAM and utilizes 2 microSD slots for operating system and storage. The screen is a 4-inch 480p IPS screen with OCA lamination. Giving the device life is a 3200 mAh battery. For connectivity, this handheld has Wi-Fi 5 built in, as well as Bluetooth 4.2. The device ships with a 64-bit Linux operating system with third-party custom firmware support available. Now let's go ahead and unbox the RG40XXH. Inside the box is the unit, a user manual, and a charging cable. Nothing too fancy here. No screen protector this time either. Now let's tour the device, starting at the top with the shoulder buttons. The bumpers and triggers are super clicky and make a very audible sound when pressed. Here's a quick listen. At the top of the device is the power button, volume rockers, power indicator light, a sole USB-C cable for charging, as well as data, a reset button, and a mini HDMI cable. There's no I/O on the sides, so let's go ahead and move to the front of the device. This is a D-pad-centric device, and while I didn't run the usual tests, the D-pad felt good in all the games that I've played. It feels like a mushy rubber membrane connection over the clicky dome switches that other handhelds have. This device does have joysticks, which to me don't really seem all that necessary. They are typical Nintendo Switch Joy-Con joysticks, and I never like using them when they're on the bottom like this. Unlike past devices in the RGXX line, the RG40XXH has LED lighting around these joysticks, and they can get pretty bright. I prefer to just turn these off, and if I can, I would like to remove these sticks altogether and 3D print some kind of plug. I'm that annoyed by these joysticks. The face buttons are just as mushy as the D-pad and feel good to touch. They are also responsive. Under the left joystick is an easily accessible menu button that I'm happy is not on the top, and the start and select buttons are on the right. The screen on this device is definitely the nicest of all the RGXX devices I've tested. That said, it is a 4x3 screen, which is serviceable for content meant for that resolution. I find myself preferring 16:9 screens these days, but there really is nothing wrong with this screen, and I like the size of it better than the 35XX's. The back of the unit is a flat matte back. I was worried about the ergonomics, as I don't care for flat devices. However, this one is pretty comfortable. It feels nice and light, and I'm able to loosely hold it in my hands, keeping them from getting fatigued. I was pretty surprised that I could hold this without my hand cramping. The only other handheld that does this is the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro. The bottom of the device has 2 downward-facing speakers, a 3.5mm headphone jack, and the 2 microSD card slots. Now if you're looking for a plug-and-play device, the stock software on the Anbernic RG40XX is serviceable. It is the same software featured on the other RGXX devices and allows you to play games using a stock emulator or RetroArch depending on where you pick your games from in the menus. I highly recommend you load your games using the RetroArch menu settings as things are a bit better optimized there. You still might need to adjust scaling options as some of the games are stretched to fill the screen. With console games, that's fine, but things will look funny if you're playing Game Boy or Game Boy Advance. For example, if you're playing Oracle of Ages using the stock emulator, you can see things don't look quite right with the text and the numbers. However, if you launch this game with RetroArch, things are just fine. It's little quirks like that which make this stock OS imperfect. This particular model also came with a couple of preloaded ports, and I'm actually not a fan of this. While there are ports that are considered freeware or abandonware, I should not have a working copy of Stardew Valley on this handheld. Now I have a legal copy on Steam, and I could set this up myself through Portmaster anyway, but I paid for the game, which means I supported the developer. I know piracy is a gray area in our space, but I don't know. This seems a little too shady and a little too far. If you're okay with it though, you'll get a few paid ports on this stock SD card. Me personally, I don't like using the stock SD card that comes with these handhelds. I like to load these systems up with a custom operating system and use my own ROM sets and SD cards. So let's take a look at some of the custom firmware options out there. If you're looking for an emulation station front end that is forked off Batocera, then Newly is the operating system you're looking for. Everything you like about emulation station is here, including scraping box art and theme support. You can also set alternative emulators and cores and modify settings per system as well as per game. If you're looking for something simpler, MinUI has you covered. You get a nice, simplified menu in order to access your games, and when you're in a game, you get a nice simplified menu in there as well for in-game options. If you're giving this handheld as a gift, MinUI is the most user-friendly you can get. If you're a power user though, thanks to Russ from Retro Game Core, you can also load up something called Abomination OS on top of MinUI to get some advanced features like different emulator cores, as well as the ability to enter the RetroArch menu instead of the MinUI menu. Russ also put a section in there for you to put your Pico 8 Explore menu and launch Pico 8 content through there if that is your thing. My favorite of the custom firmwares for the XX line, however, is this development build of MuOS. The release version is not yet available for the RG40XX, but you can access test builds by supporting the devs on Ko-Fi. I also love the ability to load up files from either SD card. You could select custom RetroArch cores per game, and even the RetroArch menus seem much easier to navigate. There is native support in MuOS for Portmaster, so you can download some native ports like Apotris, possibly my favorite way to play Tetris these days just due to the music that plays during the gameplay. And as far as gameplay goes, I would temper your expectations as to what this handheld can do. Ideally, you want to use this handheld as a way to play 8 and 16-bit games. This system is actually a very nice way to play those specific games. However, if you do want to push the envelope, I was able to go as high as lightweight PSP games. God of War, however, is definitely a no-no. I thought maybe I can get decent Nintendo DS performance, but to me, these games were just shy of being playable. In addition to using an antiquated version of Drastic, the frame rates just weren't consistent, which led to some choppy sound. If this doesn't bother you, you can probably get some DS enjoyment out of this system, but I wouldn't 100% count on it. Now let's start to wrap things up with my final thoughts. Let's start with the fact that this handheld is oddly comfortable. It's lightweight and is nice and balanced, which compensates for the lack of grips in the back. The other XX devices don't really have this level of comfort due to their smaller sizes, so it's nice to see here. And out of the XX devices, this is the one I've enjoyed the most as a result. That's also because the D-pad and buttons feel good and natural to use, and the screen is also good. It's not the best screen in the world, but it is a pretty darn good one. I like that it's a bigger screen than in other XX models. The extra 0.5 inches compared to the RG45XX makes a pretty big difference, especially with 4x3 content. This device has plenty of custom OS options, but the stock operating system isn't bad either, and it's under $100, coming in at around the cost of a single AAA video game. Of course, no device is perfect, so let's take a look at the negatives. There aren't many, but they're still prominent. The first is the joysticks. I understand they might be needed for N64 and Dreamcast, but a system like this to me isn't designed for those consoles. They end up just getting in the way as a result, and I've never been a fan of joysticks on lower end devices dating all the way back to the RG351P. They just get in the way of what should be a D-pad centric device. This handheld is also underpowered compared to what you can get around the same price point, or even a little higher if you're willing to go into the $100 to $200 handheld range. And this handheld is also competing with its sister XX devices. Don't get me wrong, I really like this handheld, but I also liked the 35XXH. So if you already have an XX device, this doesn't really give a compelling reason to want to upgrade. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Is this a device you are considering? Do you have one? And what do you think is the best use case for a device like this? Please feel free to continue the conversation on the Retro Handhelds and Steam Machine Discords, where you could find me hanging out in between videos. And if you want to support the show like these wonderful people on the screen, you could do so by going to my Patreon page. Links for all these places are in the description. But that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and please be sure to like and subscribe if this video was helpful to you in any way. Every smash of that button helps the channel grow and allows me to get more content out to you. But until next time, bye for now, and don't stop believing.